my name is Kristy Placido.
And I am Carrie, Toth.
And this is CI Diaries,
our brand new podcast sponsored by Wayside Publishing.
So welcome to our very first episode. How are you doing today, Carrie?
I am doing great. It is beautiful weather in Southern Illinois. We are going to get to 74 today, and there is nothing like the first warm days after the winter. I feel like my seasonal affective disorder is starting to dissipate, and I have you can sense that stamina to make it through to the end of the school year kind of filling you up.
Yes, I know. I feel like I'm from Michigan, and it just sort of, once it hits March, it feels like the world is just starting to wake up again. And we're going to have a warm day today and tomorrow, actually. And I feel sort of like, we're kind of coming out of this whole 2-year nightmare of a pandemic that we've been experiencing. So it almost feels like not only is it spring, but it almost feels like a renewal of our spirits too, after such a long 2 years. So I'm definitely feeling it.
And Wayside is sponsoring the IFLT conference this summer. And this week we had our first meeting of the team for the IFLT conference too. And I feel like that was another little bit of renewal, thinking about getting to have our first in-person. That'll be the first in-person conference I've been to since the shutdown. We had 2 conferences planned right before the shutdown. And so it really does. It just feels like everything is kind of coming back to life. And so
yeah.
Looking forward to all of that.
It's amazing. I am just like ready. I'm just feeling really energized and ready to go. And that's why I'm so excited to be starting this podcast with you too, because I feel like it's like a new beginning and I'm ready to just get back into it and be enthusiastic again. So yes. I'm excited.
It has been hard to find mojo. It's been kind of dark days for us.
For sure.
I know for classroom teachers all around. We've been through some really hard to get through days. And so I hope that what we're feeling is kind of what you guys are feeling out there right now. And I hope that you come along with us on our podcast ride and maybe we can build back some of that excitement and mojo in the classroom.
Yeah, that's my hope too. So, we'd like to introduce ourselves to you for those of you who don't know us, or for those of you who haven't seen us in a while. So like I said, my name is Kristy Placido, and I'm a Spanish teacher. I teach in mid-Michigan. In Michigan, we like to use our hand to show where we're from. So I'm right about here. And I teach in a small town called Fowlerville. I actually teach in the town that I went to school in. I went K-12, Fowlerville schools. So this is my 25th year as a Spanish teacher. And I studied in Mexico and Spain as a college student. I've wanted to be a teacher forever, for as long as I can remember. I remember being a small child and making my brother and my pets and my stuffed animals all sit in my bedroom and be my classroom while I taught them little lessons. So I feel like it's kind of in my blood to be a teacher. And I just love what I do. So, Carrie, how about you?
I am Carrie Toth. I am from Southern Illinois. So everybody thinks Illinois and thinks Chicago, but I actually live only about 45 minutes from St. Louis, Missouri. So I'm far down in Southern Illinois. It is my 28th year in the classroom. I also have sort of always been teacher in the blood. My mom was a teacher, so I used to set up my little animals and stuff too. But when I went to college, I went intending to be a doctor. I had a little accident my freshman year, and I was on crutches, and I had to drop a chemistry class because I couldn't carry my own stuff around in the lab. I took an extra Spanish class, so I was in 2 Spanish classes that semester. Just I fell in love. I had always loved Spanish. I wanted to be a bilingual doctor. I really thought, I was going to be out there helping patients in Spanish, but it was, Spanish just gets you and teaching gets you. And I am right where I'm supposed to be. I love my classroom. I love being in the classroom. I can't imagine being anywhere else. I don't have that much longer left in the classroom. I've got about 6 years after this one. And I think about the time after, and, you get excited about what it looks like post classroom, but also I think about those the kids, and they inspire me to, every day. And so we're excited to share our experiences in the classroom with you, and sharing just, what we're doing every day with our students with you, and how they impact us, and hopefully how what we're doing in the classroom is impacting them.
Yeah. So our podcast is called CI Diaries. And we took a long time trying to figure out what we wanted to name our podcast. And we ultimately decided on CI Diaries because we think of a diary as something that you contribute to every day. We're not going to be making a podcast every day, but Carrie and I are in the classroom every day. And, sometimes those little things that you do every day as a classroom teacher, you don't really think that much of it, but it could mean so much to another teacher who maybe just hadn't had that idea yet. So we really want to bring our day-to-day experiences as, we won't say old, but vintage, seasoned teachers. We would really like to bring you our day-to-day experiences. So hence CI Diaries. But the first part of that name is CI, which most of you probably already know stands for comprehensible input. And Carrie and I thought we would talk a little bit today about how we got started on our journey, not just as Spanish teachers, but as comprehensible input. Sometimes we call ourselves acquisition-driven teachers as well. So, Carrie, do you want to talk a little bit about how your journey into comprehensible input got started?
I actually came to teach comprehensibly a little late. And that sounds weird. Like, you would think as a teacher, you would always want your students to comprehend what you're saying. But I taught mostly in English for the first 14 or so years I was in the classroom. I was teaching directly from the pages of a textbook. We used the Realidades series. And so I just taught cover to cover from the Realidades series. And to do that, you have to teach a lot of grammar, direct grammar lessons. And you cannot teach those things in the target language to level 1 and level 2 students. And really even level 3 and 4 students, you can't explain how the subjunctive works to them in target language. And so we spent very little time in the classroom in the target language. And so when we say CI, we mean teaching with comprehensible input, teaching in the target language. And I wasn't doing that. And so I was in year 14 before I went to a TPRS workshop. And the first one I went to was just a 1-day workshop. And it was with Susan Gross. And it just, I felt all tingly when I left. I thought, this is what I need. Like, my kids are not interested. You get all these freshmen coming into your classroom, and on the first day, they're so excited and they have smiles on their faces because they're so anxious to learn to speak your language. And you tell them, open up your books. And then by day 2, when you're just like, okay, we're going to memorize all of these 250, in those first pages of the book, it's all the days of the week, all the months of the year, all the commands of the classroom, it's so much stuff that they're overwhelmed before you get even out of week 1. And so you've lost half the class before. And so you can just see them like wilting. And I thought, this is exactly what I need. So I got further TPRS training, and pretty soon I had thrown the book out the window. But over the years, I've come to embrace kind of the idea of grammar in context. We do need to present these grammar pop-ups and, help students find patterns after they have all of that language in their head. So we do lots of stories. We do lots of readings. We do readers. We just do all kinds of stuff in the classroom that gets language in their heads so that they can then produce. So it has been a cool journey these last 14 years to produce real users and speakers of language.
And you actually have that experience from the first part of your career to kind of contrast with what you're doing now. So
I do, like, the big difference in retention rates. Like, at the beginning of my career, I would have 100 kids take Spanish 1, and I would have 3 kids in Spanish 4. And at the end of my career here, I have 100 kids in Spanish 1 and 50 in Spanish 4. So looking at the difference in what it has done to immerse them in language and make interesting topics and to make them feel successful, it's a crazy change.
Yeah, definitely. So my journey into this was different because I started out as a student teacher. We were very much encouraged to stay in the target language as much as possible during our class. So I am always, the type of student who wants to please my teachers and my professors. So that was like my number one goal, was to just stay in the target language and stay in the target language all class period if possible. And I was teaching out of a textbook called Dime, which many people may remember. And I remember I would always have a lot of anxiety on the first day of introducing a new chapter, because I knew that was the day when I was going to have to try to introduce all this list of new vocabulary. So I was always trying to come up with interesting ways to introduce this new vocabulary to the students and stay in the target language at the same time. And it was like so overwhelming. And I knew it was really hard for the students, and bless their hearts, they actually did try to work with me, but I know they didn't understand the majority of what I was saying to them. And, I knew I was supposed to be speaking Spanish, but I also knew they didn't understand me. And I had no idea how to connect those two things in the middle.
So incomprehensible input.
Right. Right. It was immersion at best. It was like throwing them into the deep end and watching them flounder around. So my first year of teaching, I got a job. I was really lucky because I had some very supportive colleagues in my school where I got my job. And they actually invited me to go to a workshop by Melinda Forward. And she was a trainer at the time who was teaching TPRS in a very different way from the way TPRS is taught now. But it was kind of the old school TPRS where you would teach maybe like 12 structures and ultimately leading up to a story that contained those 12 structures. So it was kind of still a lot, like it was a lot of vocabulary to be introducing to students, but it was way less vocabulary than what I had been trying to introduce in a textbook. So I came back from that workshop. I was super excited. And I started making stories with my textbook vocabulary. And my students really liked it. And they were like, I was like seeing a new side of my students that I hadn't seen before. And they were understanding me. So I was hooked. When I saw that I could speak the language and my students could understand me, I was just hooked. And I kind of, at that point, became a little bit obsessed. And I started going to every workshop I could find. I was young. I didn't have any children at that point. So, I was flying to Atlanta to see this workshop and going to Chicago to see this workshop. And I just really immersed myself in it. And I've never looked back. So, I mean, I've evolved as the years have gone by, but it's just been such a great journey of just like, how can I make this even more comprehensible to my students? So,
Yes.
I was really fortunate that I got in kind of on the ground floor and never really had to do it any other way.
I love that for you. I look back at those students that I had, those 14 years of students that I think, but as we know better, we do better.
Exactly.
And, I think, man, I just wish that I had known then, because there are so many kids that took a semester or a year of Spanish and then left that could have been in for 2 or 3 or 4 years, because we think about creating. Grant Boulanger has a hashtag on Twitter, a nation of advocates. And that's what we want to make. We want to make a nation of kids who are advocating for language programs, who are advocating for becoming bilingual. And by creating lovers of language, kids who come in smiling to class every day because they know we're going to have a good time in here today. We may tell a story. We may do a reading. We may be doing a topic like, healthcare, or, studying whether we use a remedy or whether we use a prescription medicine. But like, we're doing it in a way where we're speaking the language, we're immersed in the language in class. Like those are things that they remember as they leave our classrooms, that those were not in the way that I taught before when we were memorizing, you know,
For sure. For sure. Yeah.
and vocab lists of 100 words that they had to
Yeah,
spell correctly
definitely.
and have every accent right.
Definitely. All right. So I would like to finish our podcast today just by talking a little bit about what is comprehensible input. So our listeners can have a basic idea of what it is we're going to be kind of coming back to in each of our podcasts. So Carrie, what do you think? What would, if someone were to ask you, like, give me an elevator speech of what is comprehensible input, what would we say?
To me, input in the classroom is any kind of language input that a teacher can give to the students that students are understanding at, I'm going to say 98 to 100% comprehensibility. It is not comprehensible input if your whole class isn't really understanding you. So it can be readings that you're doing. So it can be, a reader that you're sharing. It can be an infographic that you're sharing with them. It can be a conversation that you're having with the class. It can be anything that you're talking about together in the classroom. But the key feature is that you have to be stopping and you have to be checking for comprehension. You have to be asking those questions. And in a lower level class, they're not necessarily going to have the language to answer you back in, complete sentences to say that they understand. So even if it's asking just yes and no questions, what was the boy's name that we
Right.
just talked about, just to make sure. And a lot of it comes to teaching to their eyes, just asking, a kid that maybe you're not sure, do you really understand, asking them a question that you think is a pretty easy answer. You're pretty sure they understand. But always
watching for that glazed over look to come
yes.
across their face. There's a really fantastic teacher named Dr. Terry Waltz. She teaches both Mandarin Chinese and Spanish. And she's honestly one of the smartest people I've ever listened to.
Yes,
And she talks about not just comprehensible input, but comprehended input. And for me, that's been such a key way of thinking about this, because just because you as the teacher are doing everything that you think you need to do to make the language comprehensible to the students, it doesn't really count until the student actually comprehends the input. So it has to be comprehended in order to really be comprehensible. So for me, that was like a light bulb moment.
As we talked about how we came to use this, use more input in the classroom. That was one of the things that was shocking to me in seeing Susie Gross talk. She taught me some French, and I had never learned French before, but she spoke very slowly. And, she's a French teacher. She spoke very slowly. She taught me French using French, and I understood everything she was saying. And I thought, wow, already speaking Spanish, it's easy for me to feel like, man, you guys should be understanding this. I've said it 5 times already. But the student, when your role is reversed and you're put into that student position. So, being able to be in that position, if you ever get the chance to learn a language from someone who can speak really slowly to you, who can teach you the language using that language, like John Bracey with Latin, like listening to him teach Latin. It's crazy to be learning Latin. Or I've learned Russian from Katya Paukova, like to learn Russian. So in a day, to learn all these chunks of Russian, it's so much fun to understand another language when you're immersed in it, because somebody can make it comprehended, like Terry says.
Well, I think that's just about all the time that we have for today. But Carrie, I'm so excited to be doing this podcast with you. This is going to be
Same.
amazing. And I hope everyone will join us again next time. We are really looking forward to just diving deeper into some of these ideas that relate to comprehensible input and how they apply to our classroom on a daily basis. CI Diaries, right?
Yes.
Well, Carrie, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Go out and enjoy that sunshine and that nice weather.
Definitely.
And we'll see all of you real soon. Thanks for joining us.
See you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.